Okay. We realized that we always begin forum by introducing our speakers, but we've never introduced ourselves. And so we didn't know who our audience would be this time. We didn't know if we'd have a full house, if nobody would show up. But we thought that we'd begin by just kind of giving you a little idea of who we are and why us. And the why us part is Jim Austin. For those of you who do not know Jim, he started Forum. And when Dr. Dickinson died, he needed a sidekick. And he said to me when he approached me, ask a woman, she'll get the job done. So Forum facilitators were always women. And the three of us, Christine Peak, we were all recruited by Jim. And in order to be recruited, you had to do a number of things. Number one, show up every Wednesday. You had to commit to that. Number two, you had to commit to the duties. Find the speakers, write up the emails, send the emails, start the meeting, end the meeting, do all of those. But most importantly, you had to have a network. He felt like you needed to be out in the community so that when you had to line up a new speaker each week, you would be able to do that. Both Barbara Bynum and Judy Ann Files were and are on city council, former mayors, and a lot of committees associated with that. Lori Wenzel, who isn't here today, is also a facilitator, and she's kind of from the arts community. Lori, unfortunately, is battling stage 4 cancer. So we needed a fourth person, and we hope that Jim will smile on this. We chose a man.
Thanks, Jim.
Mcfeeney is the new director of Colorado Mesa University, Montrose. Some of you may have known him from Delta Montrose Electric Association and Elevate Fiber. He was the COO. He was, what else?
I had a lot of titles over my years.
And he has been a professor at CMU. President of the Chamber of Commerce here in Montrose. And when CMU did a nationwide search for a new director, we had, I think, 40-some applicants, and narrowed it down to 15, and Steve was in the final group and ended up getting the job. So we thought, if we need an additional facilitator, how about pulling Colorado Mesa University in and asking Steve if he would do that. So Steve Mcfeeney is person number 4, and that gives you kind of an idea of who we are and why we're here. Mostly it was we were willing, and that was a huge commitment.
Thank you, and that was Kathy Heavers.
Oh, yeah.
I want to thank you all for your patience. In the last 15 months, we've missed you as much as I think you have missed Forum. But we also are missing some people in our lives, and that may be relatives of yours and relatives of mine, family. But I want to just mention 2 individuals, and that's Jim Austin and Jim Peak, both of whom we lost during the last 15 months. And we know they're up there smiling on us and glad that this legacy of Forum has continued. When I try and explain what this is to people outside our community, they can't understand that we're not an actual organization with any structure or bylaws. We're just some volunteers that come together every week and have usually 100 people attend an informational educational program about their community. And I think that's really special. So I want to thank all of you for hanging in there with us for the last 15 months and for being here, and to just take a second to reflect on how lucky we are to be here and how much we miss the folks who aren't able to be here with us.
Thank you, Barbara. First of all, I do think we're very lucky that we're able to have this facility to be in, and we really appreciate that. It came together before when we were meeting, and now we'll be able to be back in it, and that's great. We're excited about the future. We really missed it. The three of us would get together so often and talk about, can we do it yet? Can we start again? No, you have to keep putting it off for different reasons. So now we're here, and we're excited, but sometime after today's presentation, or any time at all, if you have ideas that you would like, topics you'd like to hear in the future, things that you missed, something that during this 15 months you thought about and thought, wow, if we had forum, we could be doing that. If you have those ideas, please email one of us, call us, whatever. We're probably all really available. So thank you for coming back, for bearing with us, and let's hope we can continue. Now, Mr. Mcfeeney.
Well, without further ado, I don't want to go too much deeper into the introductions, but it is great to see everybody back. One of the things, just a quick thing of housekeeping, the parking right across the street really needs to be reserved for the businesses over there. So if we can try to keep those places open, just so that they'll have a place to park for their work. But beyond that, so I wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, this is Cascade Hall at Colorado Mesa University. So we have, this was a classroom about 2 weeks ago where we actually had math class in here and nursing class. And so we've converted it back into the forum. And President Foster actually sent out the notice just recently that we are actually back to pre-pandemic settings. So our capacities are back to normal and our spacings are back to normal and all that kind of stuff. And so it's been really, it's really great. So it's good to be able to host this meeting every Wednesday. So we hope everybody will continue to come out. A couple of introductions in our office. Chris Wilcox, I want to have him raise his hand. He's one of our advisors. He actually advises all the students as to what it is that they need to do and that kind of thing. Also, we have my boss. I actually have a lot of bosses in the room right now, but Tim Pinot is the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives. Derek Wagner is Vice President of Governmental Affairs and all that. And then I also want to introduce the past chair of the Board of Trustees of Colorado Mesa University. David Reed is actually here also. So he wears a lot of hats, but David got to be in charge of all the Board of Trustees. So without further ado, Tim Foster has served as the president of Colorado Mesa University since 2004, when he was appointed by the Colorado Mesa University Board of Trustees. A former member of Colorado Governor Bill Owens' cabinet, Mr. Foster previously served as executive director of the Colorado Commission on Higher Education. He was initially appointed to the position by Governor Owens in 1999 and reappointed in 2003. Mr. Foster also served as head of the Department of Higher Education, which includes the Colorado Historical Society and the Colorado Council of the Arts, and served on the boards of the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, the Denver Chamber of Commerce, and the Committee on Science and Technology. Busy man. Prior to directing the Colorado Commission on Higher Education, Mr. Foster served in the Colorado House of Representatives beginning in 1988 and served as the House Majority Leader for 4 sessions from 1993 to 1996. He received numerous awards from diverse groups such as the Sierra Club, Ducks Unlimited, the Iron Skillet Award from the Colorado Restaurant Association, and the Guardian Award from the National Federation of Independent Business. During that time, Mr. Foster was also a partner in the general practice law firm of Foster, Larson, Leike. Did I say that right? Not even close. And Griff in Grand Junction. A Grand Junction native, his numerous community activities include service on the Board of Governors of the Colorado Bar Association, the Board of Powderhorn Ski Area, and as chairman of the Grand Junction Economic Partnership. Mr. Foster earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics with honors from Kenyon College in 1980. He completed graduate coursework for a master's degree in mineral economics at the Colorado School of Mines in 1982 to 1984. And Mr. Foster also earned a Juris Doctorate from the University of Denver College of Law in 1984. So there's a lot there. The married father of 4 sons, Mr. Foster is an avid bike rider, skier, swimmer, soccer player, and coach. I'd like everybody to give a warm welcome to President Tim Foster. Well, how exciting to be back together again, right? So, yoo-hoo! You guys gotta get a little more participatory. I know Ben's asleep already, we're past his nap time, but that's all right. Hey, it's a pleasure. It's really a pleasure to get to come up and see you all as a group again. Kathy, thanks for teaching Derek so well, because he can write. He writes really well. So
Thank you.
I give all the credit to you for that. I wish you would have taught him math. He's not good at math, but he's good with the English language. So we'll run you through a variety of things. Anytime you want me to, I'll get a little closer. You want me to stop or you have a question, feel free to interrupt. I'm happy to take a question. I come from a family of 7 kids, 3 sisters. I'm used to being interrupted a lot. So, COVID. And I will say really, John Marshall, who's the new incoming president, did an amazing job adapting and dealing with COVID. About a year ago, I guess, a little more than a year ago, as we sat and chatted about, could we come back? What do you think? Let's try. We're gonna give it a shot. The over/under on how long we were gonna last in the fall of 20 was, well, maybe we can start school live, maybe we can go 4 weeks, maybe 6, maybe 8. The fact that we went really about 14 or 15 weeks and only had to leave with a week left was nothing short of remarkable. And it really was a variety of just testing and tracing, and we were so lucky to get connected up with some folks from Harvard and MIT, the Broad Institute. We ended up getting written about in the New York Times. I crack up about that because, and anybody here who works for the State Department of Health, I'll apologize early and often, but everything we did, we fought with the State Department of Health to do. You can't do that. Well, that's great. We're 240 miles away. We're going to do it anyway. And yet, the New York Times writes about us, and we go, can we talk to you guys about what you did? I was like, oh, you got to read about it in the New York Times. We can't just tell you about it. I get it. But we had a wonderful team, redeployed folks, moved people around. Obviously, budgets were extremely tight. And it really comes down to the culture of our university. And I say our university because it is our university. And so we're very adaptive, I think, out here in Western Colorado, quick, a little quicker, more nimble than perhaps. You can see the testing, and this was we thought it was really critical that we were crystal clear and very transparent with the community. Because what you could hear when we said we were coming back live in Grand Junction particularly was, you're gonna bring all these kids in and you're gonna kill everybody in Grand Junction. And I was like, okay, we don't think we're gonna do that, but tell you what, we will be right there in terms of how many cases we have, what's happening, how we're doing isolating and all those sorts of things. And so this is our full year. This is Halloween. We did not see Halloween coming. Halloween is a big party night for college kids. And they got together on Halloween. They were really good all the way along, just hanging with their friends, small house parties. Halloween was a big blow up, and all of a sudden our cases spiked, which is why we left about a week early. It was okay. We need to get, if you test negative, you need to go home right now, because we wanted you to go home, be with your family, and not stick around and pick up the virus and stuff. So you can then see that it just tailed off to literally nothing in the spring, and so we were very fortunate in terms of that. You can see how many, we were clear about how many rooms we had available. We were not,
even close to full in terms of our room, except for that week just right after Halloween. And so we had a number of beds that we can isolate. Obviously had sort of a green, yellow, red symbol telling everybody how many cases we had, how many positive cases, how many total test results. I think I got tested more than anybody in Western Colorado. I think I tested about once or twice a week to be able to do anything. This is that headline from the New York Times, and I will say, one of the things that we did, and we really piloted this, was effluent testing, testing poop as it comes out of all of our residence halls. And in that way, we could quickly, I mean literally, instead of running a test that was going to take days or weeks, in real time, if you saw an uptick in a residence hall, then we could quickly over-test that residence hall, pull the kids out of the residence hall, and we probably avoided 4 or 5 different super spreader events where it was just going to take off. We used all sorts of technology. We tracked cell phones so that if students were collected together and we knew that somebody had a positive test, then we knew that they were around. We could test those students. Just on and on and on in terms of the amount of technology and sophistication. And I give a lot of credit. Our faculty actually came up with the effluent testing idea and set up a little lab and ran it a couple times to make sure that it would work. But just really, really very beneficial for us. So a year ago when they adopted the state budget classic, right, they took us down 58% and then backfilled with one-time money 53%, which if you are nervous, which I get nervous sometimes, backfilling 53% of our budget with one-time money was a little concerning to us. And so at the time, we really tightened our belts and didn't fill a lot of positions, kept a lot of positions vacant. As I said earlier, we redeployed folks all over campus, had coaches working in admissions and counseling positions all over the place. We did not furlough anybody. We were lucky not to have to do that. And then, you know, reading all the economists and everybody, was it going to be a V? Was it going to be a W? Was it going to be a slope? Thankfully, Colorado was a V and a V on steroids. And so our economy and our economies, particularly out here in Western Colorado, have just really rebounded. And so we were anticipating, we were lucky, about a $600,000 increase. You can see we ended up at about a $3.5 million increase. We historically, and one of the reasons we didn't have to furlough folks, et cetera, is we've always had about $2 to $5 million that we put in our budget as an operating contingency. And so it is there as an expenditure line. So then when something untowards happen, we don't have to make sudden adjustments. And so we drew on that, drew it all the way down. And so this year we've actually put $2 million of that back in. And I would have told you it would probably take us 4 or 5 years to begin to build that contingency line back up. And so to be able to get $2 million back in there, to me is a big deal. And it's a big deal because our economic cycles or business cycles seem to be accelerating and coming more frequently. The federal money, it is a lot of money. I will just tell you that. We're really wrestling with how best to use all of it. They put it in 2 different buckets, a student bucket and an institutional bucket. So you see here 1 student, and here 1 institutional, here 2 student, here 2 institutional. Early on the guidance, they're kind of crazy in Washington, D.C. They required us to actually write checks to students instead of using it as financial aid. And so you can imagine we became social services or a welfare transmitter. So we were actually writing checks to students and then they could write it back for housing or what have you if they wanted. And that was the direction we were given that we had to do. Some percentage of those students just kept those funds and still owe us money, but that's the way that goes. We were able to use that money then to cover a lot of the redeployments, which really helped us budgetarily. Here 3 is the one where really, you got 2 buckets of here 3. You can see 10 million on, and that's that last tranche that just passed, I guess just passed now about 5 or 6 months ago. We'll see. Trying to go through the guidance is really crazy. We've got a couple calls set up with a couple of our senators. They talk about it's supposed to be used, the student bucket in the third tranche is supposed to be used for student financial aid. Then the guidance the Department of Ed sends out says you can't make the grant contingent upon the student being enrolled. You go, okay, not sure I'm going to give financial aid if the student's not enrolled. Yeah, you guys, my reaction exactly, it is the federal government, our federal government, so to the extent that makes no sense, it makes no sense. And when you write them, they just go, well, that makes all the sense in the world, does. It's like, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do financial aid grants to students who are enrolled and reduce their borrowing. And so I think that's where we're going to go, and if we get in trouble, we get in trouble. Here's the bigger headache, I think, for us, or I think kind of sort of hangover from COVID, and that is if you think back to the spring of 2020, and we have a lot in Western Colorado of first-generation students, i.e. their parents did not get a college degree, and so they don't have a ton of experience with applying and attending and financial aid and everything else. So all of a sudden, before the semester ended, they all went home. Had no connection to high school counselors, no connection to college recruiters, and so you have this huge dip in first-time entering first-generation students. Wall Street Journal wrote an article about it. It was kind of serendipitous. It was right about the same time we were starting to look at what's going on with this fall 20 entering class, and you could tell it was overwhelmingly what we saw was a huge drop in first-generation students. Students whose parents had a college degree were still coming. You know, the overblown was the whole media meme about, oh, they're going to take a gap year. I talked to a couple of those students. I'm going to take a gap year, and you go, great. What are you going to do during the time of COVID? You going to travel? Don't think so. You going to get a job? Don't think so either. Going to spend it in your parents' basement? Maybe that gap year doesn't sound like much fun in terms of a traditional gap year. So we looked at it, and sure enough, we really got everybody to take a look. And you see that first time undergraduate, which is almost exclusively first gen, we were low in terms of our dip. You look down here and see the Mountain College minus 45, UNC minus 25%, but those students will never go if you don't find a way to catch their attention and say to them, you have to go, you can afford to go. And I will tell you, I think you're looking at an echo of this in the fall of 21. Because in the Front Range, you know, over here, a lot of our students were live and in person. In the Front Range, they were not. And so again, you're going to have this repeat, and so you're going to have 2 full graduating classes where have dramatically decreased rates of going to college. This is a really busy chart, I will tell you that. So the black dot tells you what percentage is Pell. The red dot tells you what percentage of a given institution is first generation. So you can see we're about 34% Pell, and we're about 47% first gen. You can see Metro's about 41 and 57, and then you can see where the community colleges are. It's interesting that we're actually a little higher in terms of Pell than are the community colleges. But if you add the two together and you say you're either first gen and or low income, 2/3 of our students, no surprise being here in Western Colorado, fit those 2 categories. What is odd is that, and this is just more of a holdover, historical holdover, is the fact that you would think you would put more general fund into schools that serve more low income, more first generation students, and that's not how the state budget works. And that's a battle we've had for a long time, trying to rectify that. The thing that we've talked with the legislature about, we got everybody to sign on, was this issue that I was just telling you about, which is you have all these first gen kids that didn't go and probably aren't going to go. And so our argument was they're getting about 40% of the state budget in this last tranche of federal support. It is so much money. You can read the paper today, yesterday. They're setting aside money, trying to figure out how they're going to spend it. They're trying to do in huge buckets of it. It is billions of dollars. And our argument was, you have the bully pulpit, and if you said to every first graduating senior, 250% of Pell, which means kind of middle income, $80,000 family income or below, and or first generation, you get a $10,000 scholarship. And if they did that, the governor did that, it would communicate to these kids, oh my gosh, we have to go. And I think it would reverse those 2 years of graduating seniors not going to college. We'll see, we're still arguing about it because they're trying to figure out how they want to spend all their money. I'm telling them, this is not one of those things you want to wait until the fall to try and address, because you need to be communicating with the students right now. And quite frankly, I think that is a bigger issue than anything else they have on their plate. My mom's calling. This is something that we have a number of folks who've talked about us for a long time. Our Center for Reflection, some people call it a chapel. It is non-denominational. It is a place on our campus for students to go and have a moment, whether they want to go kneel, sit, pray, reflect. They just want to have a moment of silence. Really, in this era of really mental health and all the stresses that students have, this is a wonderful asset that I couldn't tell you I'm more proud of having done. And we paid for this 100% with private donations. And so it's open. If you're up on campus and you want to get in, let me know or let Derek know. We're happy to come use our math card and get you into it. Not to be used for, it's not big enough for any sort of worship service. I will tell you, outside, this little advertisement, outside's a great wedding venue. It'll seat about 200 up on the platform and about as many as 1,000 or 2,000 down in the bowl. And the campus hotel is happy to serve you if you want to have a wedding there. Another project that we funded 100% fundraised is our physician assistant physical therapy, occupational therapy building. And they have a huge demand for those. I will tell you, the accrediting bodies drive costs for higher ed like no other. We are so constrained in terms of what we have to do. And we've hit the critical point with the accrediting bodies for PA and PT and OT, that if we did not have new space, they were going to pull back our accreditation. So we got that done. St. Mary's SCL Health made a $5 million donation to us, and so we in fact named it for them. Community Hospital made a couple $1 million donation. We're actually going to have a different naming opportunity for them, but it was sort of peace in the Middle East to have St. Mary's and Community Hospital be on the same page and be comfortable with working together. We were very lucky and got this project funded. It's been out there for a little while. It's about a $17.5 million project. This is a tent manufactured just down the road here outside of Delta. It really houses a number of rec courts, an indoor track, all those sorts of things. It's also got some instructional space for our, we just have to stop and do athletic training, which is actually a graduate degree. As we speak, you can kind of get a sense as to where it sits, right by one of our residence halls and by the rec center. It's got a fun little bridge that connects the two, so you've got 3 different loops. If it gets cold and you want to come walk indoors, okay, we got a spot for you. You can come walk around our track, leave Ben at home. Why do we exist? Really, this is a map that I don't think we can look at too frequently. And it is just the green, let me back up. Colorado is one of the most educated states in the Union. The green are counties that are above the statewide average. Whatever that other color is are the counties that are below that statewide average. Montrose, Delta, Mesa, and Garfield make up about 70, almost 75% of the population of western Colorado, and you can see how far below those averages we are. That's why we have a campus here. The counties in green have one of 2 things in common. Either a international ski area, Steamboat, Vail, Aspen, Telluride, or they're little tiny counties. 2 people move into Hinsdale, we just doubled the percentage of the bachelor's degree or higher. Right? And so that's the reason we're here, and it's trying to create those opportunities for people who maybe they couldn't get there, maybe they're ready to go back and get a degree. We really jumped in and tried to help with Russell Stover's. I was intrigued. Not very many of those folks took us up on it. It was free. I think we had single digits actually in terms of students who jumped on board with that, but at least some of them did. Big thank you to the City of Montrose, Montrose County. You guys have been great partners. Although, Bill, there's a big hole out there in the parking lot. Tease again. I put it in four-wheel drive to get through it in the park. I think we'll have to get it filled up here pretty quick. But you all have been wonderful for us to work with, and in terms of being able to buy this building, the building adjacent to us, really vacating streets. I'm still amazed. Vacating streets usually is one of those things that everybody turns out, and when the city was talking about doing that, I talked with Judy Ann a lot and said, okay, don't be mad when they show up with pitchforks and everything. And nobody came and objected to closing that street. I'm still dumbfounded by that. So it has been really a wonderful, wonderful partnership. We have raised, I think, the quality of what we offer over here, both in the old library or the old school, as well as in this space. We got a little workout space. Keep talking to our students about what they would like here, and we'll continue to adapt as we go forward. Doing some career in tech, which I think is helpful, welding and some of those sorts of things. I think we're going to get a post academy in the summer if we can ever get the post board to finish their review. Just a number of those different sort of things, so that really we do the 1 year, 2 year, 4 year, anywhere along that array, and try to get folks the skills and the education that they need. I think we've really got a good building relationship with Montrose School District in terms of students coming over here and being able to go concurrently, since we're so proximate as well. And so there you see our campus. I mean, that quad I think really helps create more of a campus-like feel. And Cascade Hall obviously gives us a little bit of room for continued expansion. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun working with you all here in Montrose. And so happy to answer any questions you might have. Ben.
First of all, congratulations and thank you for everything you've done for CMU. It's just absolutely amazing. A great job on the campus is absolutely incredible. Secondly, when do you plan to announce for governor?
I didn't bring my wife because she would be throwing things at you right now. Yeah, the era that we serve, it's a whole different world out there with social media and the lack of accountability and dark money, and yeah, that's a whole different kettle of fish. I don't have that thick of skin. I'm an introvert, by nature, and so that's not. I don't think that's on my list. That's too bad.
Yeah. Could you address the need for student housing?
Yeah, and we've talked about that periodically between us, the city, and economic development folks. And if you have student housing, we would then need to have a dining hall, and then you have to really have a rec center. You got to have activity space. And so it isn't as simple as let's just build some student housing. You have to have those other things along with it. And so how would you feed them? How would you entertain them? And so that's one of those things that one of these days, although I will tell you, I would anticipate Western up the way in Gunnison. If and when we pull that off and start down that road, we'll object vehemently because in all likelihood you'll put a huge hole in their boat. Because would you rather be in Gunnison or in Montrose? I mean, it's a little cold in Gunnison for my blood. A lot. So. Good thing you're quick.
I'm a brisk little walker. Now that I'm not retired.
Do you think you've grown CMU so much? I don't know if this is putting you on the spot. Could you give us figures for enrollment when you started, present enrollment, And do you anticipate continued growth, or do you think it's plateaued?
So when I started, we were about 4,000 students. If you just count heads, we're about 10,000 now. And I hope we haven't plateaued, because unlike Derek, I'm a numbers nerd, right? He does all the writing, I do all the figuring. If you take those counties that we talked about, in Montrose, Delta, Mesa, and Garfield, and you assume, you can calculate, say 70% of the educated folks in those communities have a degree from Mesa, okay? You can argue whether it's 60, 50, but pick a number. I don't remember what percentage I picked, but I picked a percentage. And we talk to our students, and I can tell you the overwhelming majority of them want to stay in Western Colorado. So if you look at and you think about, okay, there's mobility, there's morbidity, and there's, the continuing in-migration, et cetera, of educated folks. But if you assume kind of past patterns, we need to be about 15,000 students to be at or above the statewide average in terms of educational attainment. And so that's my goal has been to grow so that we change that, so we are now more educated. And I think roads are important, I think sewer is important, I think water is important, but I think human capital is more important. And I will tell you, we educate a student here in this community, and that's a payback of 40 years. If you want to do, what's the net return, right? That's a 40-year return on that investment. And so if we can increase those students who go to college, and it's really 1 year, 2 year, 4 year, that jump from post-high school just jumps way up. And then they participate. They participate, voluntarily, they participate in coaching, they participate in democratic processes. And so to me, we want to get to 15,000 students, and the incumbents are here. It's a matter of how do we convince them, yes, you can, yes, you need to, and you don't have to immediately say, I'm going to go get a 4-year degree. Anywhere along. And that's the advantage that we have as a dual mission institution with a community college role and mission as well as a 4-year and graduate role and mission, is we can kind of serve them anywhere along that slope. So I hope not. I will tell you, more and more competitive, but what's fascinating, where we have stalled out is with local kids. And I would challenge everybody in this room, to work. We see the same thing in Grand Junction as we see in Montrose. Our numbers coming from out of state and out of the region continue to go up. It's our local students who, aren't convinced that they can, need to, can afford, and they can, all three of those. And I think that's just us having to interact with those students. I spoke at a graduation the other day at a charter school in Grand Junction, and I gave my cell number. I said, here's my cell number. If you're thinking about it, call me. If you're thinking you can't afford it, I had 2 calls from 2 of those graduates. One of them came and saw me yesterday. We sat down, filled out her FAFSA, figured out. All of a sudden, she got out of a total cost of attendance of $11,000, she got an $8,000 scholarship. In terms of housing and Pell and state aid and everything else. I'm going, she goes, oh, I can afford to go to college. I'm going, I know. This is what I'm trying to tell you kids. So, yeah, I think if we can enlist you guys to jump in, it's going to take all of us to really change that dynamic. But 15,000 is the right number.
Thank you. So how are you feeling about the high school, the feeder high schools locally? Are you working with them to make sure students are prepared? Maybe they're not feeling like they're prepared. I don't know what their stumbling block is to coming. And then are you anticipating having to do remediation for students coming in because of the remote learning, and maybe there's been some gaps and maybe they're not really prepared, but they want to come?
Okay, that was a multi-part question. I think increasingly our relationship with the school district here is better and better. The last superintendent who just left was really great. The new one, it seems to be good. I've only met with her via Zoom, so I don't know her as well. In terms of the preparedness issue, you know, some kids, and because we have a dual mission, we've got a community college, we do remediate a certain number of students. Absolutely, the ones who've been remote are going to require more remediation. They're just going to have a gap in their learning. I don't know what holds, and it really pains me. I mean, I graduated with a bunch of these kids back in the day and watched people smarter than I am absolutely not even think about going to college. And you gotta go. And I watch them today, and they're great people, but I look at where their ceiling would have been had they gone, and it just pains me, right? And so it is a one at a time discussion. And I think part of it is they read national media and how expensive and $50,000 in tuition, and you try to say, that is not, that is like everything in the media, that's the extreme end of the story. And so there is financial aid for you, the cost is nowhere close to that, you can take time, we can figure it out, you know, start now. But they have to, I will tell you the data is crystal clear, 95% of those who achieve a degree start within 12 months of high school graduation. And so that whole, yeah, life gets in the way. If you don't start and pick away at it, it just doesn't happen. It's stunning how overwhelming that is. So, to the extent there's a little more remediation, not a big deal. We can handle that. Students can work at it and catch up. And they do well, I tell you. And a lot of them, you know, to me, it's so fun to watch when they come in. I just want a certificate in welding, and then they all of a sudden are getting really good grades. Oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and get an associate's degree. Well, I'm going to open my own welding shop. I'm going to go ahead and get a business degree, and watch them really get turned on by it. That's cool. One of my alums in the back. She can ride a motorcycle though.
Yes, I can. But before I ask my question, I just want to say, as a past student, you as the president during my time was amazing. I think that I could speak for most students that a president that is involved as you are and makes not them feel like a number, but you actually know our names, it just goes a long way. So I just want to say thank you for making the experience, not just for me, but for a lot of us, like, just ultimately so exciting. Sorry.
Stop, you're gonna make me cry too. That's a really bad look. Derek takes pictures, it's on social media.
No, but I think it's really exciting to see you be able to do what you want now. And with Jay Marsh coming into, I think he's gonna be able to take that same morality to continue what you've done for them. Now for my fun question, I want to know how many buildings did you renovate and create during your time as president?
You know that number, Derek? I can tell you everything on our campus and on this campus we've revitalized. So we either renovated it or built it new. And it's important because you've got to have technology, you have to have technology so y'all can hear, and you have to have acoustics, and it just elevates the quality of education. And so literally every square foot we renovated. But way to try to make me cry. This close.
I wanted to ask you if you thought that doing away with SAT and ACT tests would make a difference in enrollment for local students. Was that a barrier, and changing requirements, making the attention it received in the national press was large, and change that focus on the national level, would that make a difference on our local attendance? And is there a barrier there that we need to overcome?
I would say, I will tell you, it's really kind of an honor. When I was running the Department of Higher Ed, we did a study in concert with ACT and SAT across the country and in Colorado, and we did it over 20 years to look at ACT, or standardized test score, as a predictor of college success. No connection. GPA, direct correlation. GPA, graduation. GPA, graduation. ACT score, I mean, I had these boards in my office. I guess I'm a nerd. And so it was random. You could have a high, and what you'd see is, you'd see a modest ACT score and a high GPA, and that student would outperform the student with a high ACT and a modest GPA. And what that told me, or our conclusion was, work ethic, motivation. So I would take a high ACT or low ACT 4.0 student every time, because that's a smart kid who works their tail off, as compared to a high ACT B or C student. That's a really smart kid, but they're lazy and they aren't applying themselves. And so the standardized test score, absolutely, it was just crazy. Now, at the time, because a lot of students, the state for 20 years now has paid for everybody to take the ACT now, or the SAT, their junior year. So everybody has that in their box. And so what we concluded at the time was, we had a lot of first-gen kids who would get to the end of their senior year and, oh, I didn't sign up for this ACT, I can't go. And so we had that accomplished their junior year. It's really meaningless in terms of what it does about acceptance and whether a student's ready to go to college or not. Not really very helpful. But the fact that it's going away, I think, isn't going to matter much. We really focus a lot more on GPA. We have one more over here, I think.
In the high schools, with the emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and math, do you find it problematic that the students you have in are kind of deficient in the liberal arts, like social sciences and art, and just things that make you like a real person?
Well, and I like math. I've said that a couple times, but you have to be able to write. You have to be able to communicate, and you have to have that broader horizon. And so periodically, the board of trustees, David was on it, would do what are you going to do to train the student population for the jobs that don't exist today? And the answer is, well, if they don't exist today, I don't know what they are, so I have no idea how to set up a training program for them. But my answer to you would be the liberal arts, right? You learn to think critically, you learn to write and communicate well, you've got a broad education, you're adaptive, you're all those sorts of things, you're well-versed, you've got a broad education, and that's the student or the graduate so often that businesses say, that's what I need. I need somebody who's creative, can communicate, can react, can respond. In higher ed circles, faculty complain bitterly about, oh my gosh, my world is just so tumultuous and changing all the time. And when I would meet with them, I'd say, guys, you just described every business sector in America. Everybody's business is, oh my gosh, it's going online, it's going virtual. And we all face this constant disruption. And so we have to educate people so they can adapt and deal with that stress and figure out how to move forward. And the liberal arts, I think you're exactly right, are a big part of that. So I think we can get too obsessed over, oh, we just need more, engineers. And I have two of my sons graduated with engineering degrees. Two of them didn't, and then all four of them have jobs and are doing well. But I agree with you. I'm getting the feeling we should be wrapping up, so.
I'm going to call on the mayor here to give a presentation, if you would.
Thank you. Before I give this to you, Tim, I do have a couple of words of wisdom. Having been retired for quite a while, one of the things you're going to have to get accustomed to is when your wife says, we need to, that's not plural. And when she says, I've been thinking, that's when you want to get out of the room. That's going to cause you trouble also. proclamation day for the city. And it's Tim Foster Day, June 30th, 2021. Whereas Tim Foster has served as president of Colorado Mesa University since 2004. Whereas under Mr. Foster's leadership, CMU has risen to prominence as a competitive and comprehensive regional public higher education institution within our region and beyond. And whereas Mr. Foster has dedicated his career to strengthening the academic opportunities and expanding the educational access to traditionally underrepresented students. And whereas Mr. Foster's work to grow the CMU Montrose campus has expanded access to higher education of Montrose residents and created an innovative environment to support the development and future community leaders. And whereas Mr. Foster has supported important community programs, including the Forum, and has championed CMU's support of these programs by advancing renovations of Cascade Hall. Whereas the City of Montrose Council and staff wish to acknowledge Mr. Foster's contribution to Montrose community and his visionary efforts to improve higher education through the state of Colorado. Therefore, we, the City Council of Montrose, Colorado, do hereby present and proclaim June 30th, 2021 as Tim Foster Day in the City of Montrose and encourage citizens to congratulate Mr. Foster on his retirement and wish him well. In witness hereof, I do under my set and hand cause to be affixed the city seal of the City of Montrose on the 2nd day of June, 2021. Thank you very much, Tim.
Bill, I'm going to say, and everybody knows, on June 30th, all speed limit signs are advisory. And open container laws are suspended. So, and you can walk down Main Street with a drink in your hand. But no, seriously, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. It has been just a lot of fun. I'm going to miss it a lot. So, thank you.
I'd also like to call on Commissioner Caddy to come up and give a presentation. Maybe it'll speed the county too.
We can suspend the fines in the whole county, not just the city. Please have Commissioner Hanson join us. I'd like to just say a couple words. I'm a graduate from CMU. Great education. Enjoyed it. Actually, it was Mesa State College. When I went there, my son graduated from Mesa State. My other son graduated with a degree in well, it's not a degree, certificates in lineman school last year through the COVID. So the school kept it together, kept him going, and they got it finished. So that was great. But anyway,
Better, huh?
whereas the citizens of Montrose County wish to celebrate and honor the unique contributions of Mr. Tim Foster making our community a better place, and whereas having grown up in Western Colorado, Tim returned to Grand Junction after college to launch a number of successful business ventures, then began his public service career at the Colorado House of Representatives, where he served 4 terms and 2 terms as Majority House Leader. Whereas in 1999, Tim left the legislative branch of government to serve as Executive Director of the Colorado Community on Higher Education and the Colorado Department of Higher Education. And whereas Tim championed legislation that provided then Mesa State College its own governing board. And whereas in 2004 he became president of Mesa State College, and in 2011 oversaw the transition to MSc to a permanent university now known as Colorado Mesa University. And whereas since 2004 Tim has dramatically transformed Colorado Mesa University into a leading institution of higher education, boasting more than 100 academic programs to study at a certificate, associate, bachelor's, and graduate levels. And whereas in 2005, Tim prioritized career and technical education at CMU and significantly boosting the capacity of Western Colorado Community College to offer a plethora of technical training programs, including programs at the CMU Montrose campus. Thank you so much for that part. We really appreciate it. Whereas during Tim's tenure as president, CMU experienced significant transformation, including increased enrollments from 5,750 to over 10,000 students today. Whereas through his tenure as president of CMU, Tim prioritized the importance of physical access to higher education programs in Montrose and surrounding communities by focusing resources and developing partnerships to improve and expand the CMU Montrose campus. And whereas the spirit of collaboration demonstrated by Tim and the leadership of Colorado Mesa University dramatically enhanced the culture and vibrancy of Montrose County, while also driving in a total regional economic impact exceeding $500 million. Not bad, huh? Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Montrose County Commissioners proclaim June 2nd, 2021 as Tim Foster Day in Montrose County, and urge all citizens to congratulate President Foster on his long, storied career in public service, serving students, Montrose County, and the entire state of Colorado as an elected official, a cabinet officer, a university president, and as a passionate volunteer. So thank you.
Okay, speed limits are suspended today, what do you say? But thank you all, that's all I can say, and it's been a lot of fun. I remember walking blocks with Kay when she was running for the legislature, so long time in Montrose. And this is a great community and a great part of the country, so thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Foster. Derek asked me quite some time ago if I would speak today. Okay, and so I hate to tell you this, but the little story I wanted to tell you, Tim's already told you. But you're going to get to hear it anyway. When I first came on Montrose City Council, the situation between CMU Grand Junction or CMU Montrose and the City of Montrose was pretty bad. My husband and I both attended Mesa. Our children both attended Mesa. And so it was important to me to work on this relationship. So Tim, in his wisdom, invited council and staff to come down for a Mesa football game. So Bill and I and our families went down. Well, you ought to know Tim. He's working the room, right? So while our families have dinner, and watch the football game from the box up above, it's a marvelous thing to do. The three of us, of course, are talking business. And so Tim says something about, it'd be nice to have more of a campus look. Could we close that street? Bill and I both say, sure, we can work that out. Tim didn't really believe us, okay? But we got the street closed, right? You can look up there, it's great. A couple of years later, Tim comes to present it for him. And in his presentation, he says, I couldn't believe you got that street closed. And you know it was done by that woman? I don't know who that woman was. I don't know her name. But we kept continuing with this relationship. So that was the first time I was mayor. Second time I was mayor, we went back to another one of these football game nights. And that's when the three of us talked about doing the scholarship program, where the City of Montrose puts quite a bit of money into this fact that any graduate from Montrose High School, Peak Academy, or Vista Charter School can go to CMU Montrose for 1 full year, free of cost. The city bought into that, so then the county supported it, and it has just grown. Tim, in his wisdom, then also went along with having a counselor at all of the high schools, the Grand Junction high schools in Montrose, who actually is there. He's funded by CMU. However, he's there on that campus all the time talking to kids to get those first gens, those low incomes. And so Tim has done a tremendous amount to help us get this community to where it is now. So thank you, Tim.
Speaker, I think. Oh, you're nervous now because you're not picking up.
Thanks. I could spend all day talking about Tim Foster, but I won't do that to you. But Tim's been a real friend. He's been a real friend to me, but he's been a real friend to the Montrose community and the development of CMU Montrose. And Tim, we thank you. Easiest job I ever had in my life was serving on the board of trustees for CMU because of President Foster. You never knew going into a board of trustees meeting what new idea and brainstorm he had the night before. We used to have these little get-togethers in the morning before we started the trustees meeting. We'd always walk in there saying, what's this guy got on his mind this morning? What is he going to want to spend money on and put us up to now? And he was really very good at that. An example, just recently, this past year, the Maverick Hotel opened on campus. I remember early on in my first days on the board of trustees, Tim came into one of the morning meetings and just very nonchalantly, he said, what do you guys think about building a hotel on campus? Everybody looked like, sure, why not? And so with Tim's leadership and Derek Wagner, Derek was kind of the team captain on the Maverick Hotel project, and he did an amazing job, and Derek, we owe a lot to you for that. But through Tim's leadership and guidance, the Board of Trustees focused on getting this job done. And amazingly, this hotel opened in the middle of a pandemic, and the rest is history. It's an amazing place. If you haven't been there, you need to go. It's just an example of what President Foster has created at CMU. He's a friend, he's a leader, he's a confidant, he's a builder, he's a doer. Most of all, he's a friend to us, to this community, and to me personally. And we just owe him a great deal of gratitude, and we wish you the best in whatever you're going to do, governor or whatever.
Thank you. It's always been our tradition to try to end on time, so we'll cut the questions off there. Next week is the City of Montrose will be here to talk. The city engineer and also the project lead. So we'll talk about city projects and cities going on. Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't also thank Tim Foster. I've been working on the Consumer Advisory Council for CMU as a faculty member for many, many years. And one of the things, and I shared this with him when I was up talking with him a couple of months ago, but he always attended the meetings in Montrose. He would always bring his lieutenants like Derek and Dr. Futhy and Dr. Pino down from the Grand Junction campus to meet with us down here and talk about the goings-on here on campus. And I was always impressed with that here you have the president of the university and a lot of the key leaders for the university coming down to the campus to talk about the issues here. And you can see some of the things that we have here. And if you've never had a picnic yet in the park, we're the only downtown park right here where the street was closed. So all that happened, there's people out there playing their guitar, there's people out there studying, there's people out there having their business meetings. It's just a wonderful environment that we've had, and we thank you for all the things you've done for us, President Foster. So, thank you. That'll end the meeting for today.